Mr. Grinch. You really are a heel. You're as cuddly as a cactus. You're as charming as an eel, Mr. Grinch. You're a bad banana with a greasy black heel. You're a monster, Mr. Grinch, Mr. Grinch. You're a house and empty hole. You're a foul one, Mr. Grinch, Mr. Grinch. Your brain is full of spiders. You've got garlic in your soul, Mr. Grinch. I wouldn't touch you with a 39.5-foot pole. You're a vile one, Mr. Grinch. You have termites in your smile. You know. You're a mean one, Mr. Grinch. You really are a heel.
Well, need to figure out how to put that in the background. I don't know how to do it yet, but we'll figure it out. So, guys, I got to tell you, wow, what a game. What a game. What a game. Let's get rid of that. All right, and then let's stop sharing that screen. Look, it looks like I got a little bit of lag. Can you guys hear me okay? Ooh, camera looks terrible this morning. Of course, I don't help that equation, so it's fine. Let's try and give it a minute to catch up here. I don't know what's going on with it. Let's try that. Nope, still laggy. Oh, well. What's going on, everybody? Can you guys hear me okay? Let's get rid of that. See if that helps. Just like Georgia's offense, I'm struggling to make a connection this morning. Where do I predict we'll be? We'll be at number 2. Number 2 for sure. I don't know if I can tolerate this. This is killing me. I don't know what's going on with the connection this morning. All this money on routers and modems and all this fun stuff, and it is just lagging like crazy. Man, I got to tell you, this Georgia team is absolutely just the grittiest football team I think I've ever seen. Absolutely incredible. Quick shout out to everybody in the chat this morning. Cliff Millwood, thank you for being here. 225 girl, once again, here you are. Thank you for being here. Brad Pitt, AJT Comics Brands. Web Payne, where have you been, sir? Haven't seen you in the hottest of minutes. Don't know where you've been, but thank you for being here. Shane Bentley says, Gerdergs. Thomas T-Bone, welcome. And Alex MLD, one of our resident members. Thank you for being a member, sir, and supporting the channel and providing this fine coffee for me this morning. Thank you. Ask you guys a question. Is it lagging on your end or is it just me? Been having some issues with video graphic stuff. Had a weird power surge the other day. Caused a bunch of issues with my computer trying to get that sorted out, but it is what it is. So, all right, guys. Man, lots to talk about. Can you guys hear me okay? I'm not much to look at, so hearing me is usually enough. Hopefully it'll clear up here in a second. Don't need that open. Don't need that open. Don't need this open. Not that should be pulling any audio is good. Okay, then let's go. Let's rock with it. I want to put some other stuff up on the screen. Anyway, yesterday was just a heck of a day. Lots to talk about here. Let me see if we can zoom in a little bit. Army beats Tulane. They are now 11-1. And they won the American Athletic Conference Championships. By the way, guys, we're going to talk about some of the less important stuff and then ramp our way up as we go. So yeah. So let's talk about Army and let's talk about rankings. Because I mean, if you're gonna say that wins matter, and not only is Army 11-1, they won their championship game. There's nobody in the top 25. Let me put it this way. There's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams in all of college football that are 11-1 right now. That's it. Before the games yesterday. And then Army was 10-1. Now they're 11-1. So a lot of these teams obviously didn't play for a championship game, so that's not going to bump them up. Why isn't Army up here? If we're going to put SMU in, if we're going to put Indiana in, if we're going to put Boise State in, put all these teams up in the top 10, why is Army not up here? Somebody tell me. Yeah, I know I'm lagging bad. I don't know why. I'm going to put this here. Here's what I'm going to do. We're going to stop the some of that just to give you guys something to look at besides how bad I'm lagging. So let's see if I can zoom in a little bit. Let's see if that helps. So here's what we're looking at. You've got Texas at 11-1. They were number 2 in the country. Penn State 11-1. I mean, Army was 10-1, guys. 10-1. They only had one loss before yesterday, right? Now they're what, 12-1? Jeez, dude. They were 10-1. Now they're 11-1, excuse me. So Texas is now 11-2. So technically Army has a better record than them. You're looking at football scores. Penn State lost. So that means now Penn State is 11-2. Army has a better record than them. Notre Dame won, didn't they? Pretty sure they did. Oh, that's right. They don't play in a championship game. So they matched Notre Dame's score schedule. Georgia is now 11-2. They have one less loss than Georgia. Ohio State. By the way, Ohio State lost to Michigan. Just thought, in case you didn't know, Ohio State lost to Michigan. Sorry about that, Ohio State guy. That was an L. That's that, and you didn't play in a championship game, but somehow you're still in the top 6. 11-1, better record than Tennessee. 11-1, better record than SMU. 11-1, better record than. Did Indiana win? Let me check. Let me see. Where's Indiana at? Oh, they're not on this list. Oh, they're not on this list. Oh, damn it. Okay, yeah. Boise State. What happened to Boise State? Boise State. Oh yeah, they won, but by Boise State that makes them 11 or 12-2. Alabama 9-3 didn't play in a championship game. Miami 10-2 didn't play in a championship game. Ole Miss, well, they're ranked, so it doesn't matter. But you see what I'm saying? I think Bama's out. Bama should be out. Bama should be out. We may have to face Texas again in the playoffs if they're still in. They'll be in. They'll be in for sure. They're not. You're not going to be the number 2 team in the country and then get knocked all the way out. That's just crazy. Army got smoked by Notre Dame. Okay, fair enough. Army got smoked by Notre Dame. I completely agree with you. They got smoked by Notre Dame. Texas lost to Georgia twice, and everybody's still cheering for them to be in. Georgia lost to an average or below average Alabama team. They're still getting in. Georgia lost to an Ole Miss team that's not even ranked in the top 12. Georgia's still getting in. So to lose one game all season, you have to say that having only one loss, no matter who it's to. I mean, it's not like they lost to a terrible team. I don't think Ohio State will beat them either. No, I agree with you, Chris. Only 6 likes. What's going on? We'll end the stream right now, guys. We will end the stream right now. 6 likes. That's not good enough for me to put the show out for you guys. If it's only 6 likes, that's not good enough for you guys. I'm not going to carry on with a show that's that bad. That would be embarrassing on my part, which is as embarrassing as it is. But because I'm not very good. So we can't get more than that. I mean, I'm not sure. Yeah. So there's that. Here we go. Hey, I found it. Let me give myself a like there. There we go. 18. Much better. Much better. Okay. Doghouse Podcast. Yes, Bama is out. And they should be out. SMU should not be in. Of course not. Listen, this is all stuff that we talked about. This is all stuff that we talked about previously. I don't know why SMU is even on this list, even though Clemson tried to give that game away and almost did. Had to come back with a miracle field goal there at the end. We'll talk about that in a minute. Let's talk about Iowa State, Arizona State. Arizona State blows Iowa State out of the water 45-19. But let's be honest, nobody cares. But they're a Big 12 champion. So they should get in, right? They should get in. Oregon beat Penn State. Jumped out to a big lead. Got a big lead at one point. I think it was like 21-7 or something. And then slowly Penn State gets back in it. Penn State has a bad third quarter. And then Oregon polishes off there at the end with a 45-37. Dylan Gabriel had 4 touchdowns. Great game for those guys. Let's look at – I want to look at something for you guys. My Clemson Tigers are lucky. BB is just a busy year. Haven't been able to catch many live. That's okay. Hadn't been able to make many, my guy. It's been rough all the way around. So don't feel like it's just you. So this was a heck of a weekend. We saw just wild games all the way around. The Georgia game was incredible. The Clemson SMU game, which I really thought Clemson was going to run away with this game. I really did. So let's look at scores. So here we go. Let's jump down to the box score here on Clemson. You guys can see all of this okay. Look at this. Cade Klubnik throws for just over, I want to say it's like 55% or something, and throws 4 touchdowns. How bad is SMU? Oh my goodness. So if you want me to show you something that's crazy, look at this. Clemson 34, SMU 31. But when you look at the overview, SMU had more rushing yards by almost 3 times the amount, and they had 80 or 40 more yards of passing. Wow, that is a huge, huge deficit. Fumbles, 3 sacks to 2 sacks, 1 interception from Cade Klubnik, no interceptions there, no kick returns for SMU, 2 punts, 1 punt return. I mean, This right here was the game though. My guy kicks a 56-yard field goal. If you didn't watch the end of this game, if you guys didn't watch the end of this game, it was absolutely incredible. I'm gonna throw the link out here for Keith if he wants to join. I'm lagging super bad, but the audio is fine. Yeah. If SMU had a little better clock management, they would have won that game. Yeah. I'm drinking coffee. Feeling better. Feeling good after a great game. I'm going to wait to see if Keith's going to jump in here. We'll talk about some other stuff. But in this game, 7 punts for Clemson, 6 punts for SMU. And they still scored a combined total of 65 points. That's just crazy. There he is. What's going on, buddy?
Hey, what's up?
A little early for you this morning?
It is, man. It is.
And I've been up since 6:30. Been debating on what time to start the live. So let's did you watch the Clemson SMU game?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did. It was I mean, I didn't watch the very, very beginning of it, but yeah, I mean, I think SMU had a real good chance of winning that game. I mean, they had some, costly turnovers early in the game, but after the first quarter, I think SMU, outplayed Clemson for the most part. And then they give them enough time there at the end to. I mean, you don't kick the ball out of the back of the end zone, right? I mean, that was. I mean, when I was watching the game, that was kind of what I was thinking. I was like, best case scenario here is even if they do kick it in the end zone, just catch it and try to get a good return.
Yeah,
and that's what ended up happening. They didn't even kick it in the end zone. They gave him a chance to return it without doing that. So
yeah, and they run that ball out. What was it, like, to the 40-yard line or something?
Yeah,
and
stuff.
Yeah, she's good. She did destroy a TV and 2 pumpkins, but she's good now. So we're gonna go with that. She was pretty upset about that because and Texas fans should be. We'll talk about the Texas game here in a little bit, but Texas fans should be upset about losing that game. We'll talk about why here in a few. First downs. I mean, SMU had 28 first downs to 20 first downs, and there's going to be some Clemson fans that get mad when I say this. I'm going to tell you like this: Clemson got beat on every side of the ball except the one that mattered, and that was on the scoreboard. The only thing you guys had was a little more time of possession, but to be honest with you, it was kind of trivial. But man, I'm going to tell you, when I watched this game, I feel like Clemson jumped out big in that first quarter, looked really good, looked like it was going to be a massive blowout. And then SMU walks themselves back into this game. They never gave up. I mean, they put up 17 points in the fourth quarter, for goodness sake. And so I'm watching this game and I'm like, I'm watching Dabo get out coached because they made an adjustment after the first quarter and it absolutely worked. They held them to a field goal in the second, a touchdown in the third, and a field goal in the fourth. I mean, that's pretty blame good.
Yeah, I mean they played a great game. Like I said, outside of that first quarter, I mean where they had, really, really bad turnover. I mean, I think that really put them behind the 8 ball. But they kind of turned the game around. It was interesting because I was kind of flipping back and forth between this game and Oregon, which. Right. Which is a different, different. Yeah, it's a different topic of conversation. I thought it was kind of strange how they put both of these games competed with each other for TV time. It's kind of weird, but
I thought that was pretty poor planning.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you fix it because I think one team had to compete, and I know ABC and CBS both wanted a primetime game, so I mean I get that, but man, it's tough, But both of these games originally, like right at the beginning, felt like they were going to be blowouts. Then it felt like they were going to be close.
Yep.
And then it felt like they were going to be a blowout. And then they both ended up being close. And so it was, throughout the night, I couldn't figure out like which game I wanted to watch, because I would watch one and be like, man, well, this is fixing to be a blowout, so I'm gonna flip over here and watch this one. And it's like, all right, well, that one's a blowout. Let me flip back over, and it's like, oh, that game's close.
Yeah,
So,
it's just kept going back and forth.
yeah, and then when you finally got down to it, both of them had some pretty 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 good endings. But man, turnovers throughout all of these games were huge.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
mean, you have Penn State throwing the pick at the end, SMU's huge pick at the beginning. Texas, Ewers throwing 2 picks.
I don't know so much that he threw 2 picks, so as much as Everett stole 2 interceptions.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, he made two great plays. Yeah,
that tipped interception was probably one of the best I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, it was a good one. But it was just funny to see how much, how many turnovers there were in these games.
Yeah.
That actually kind of ended up, deciding the game.
I talked a little bit about it before you jumped on, but I wanted to get your opinion about Army. Their record now is 11-1. And if we're going to look at that 5th conference here, I mean, okay, Big Ten's in, got it. And we're not talking about just first round buys. We're talking about people that are in. So Penn State, Oregon, Texas, Georgia, Clemson has to be in. I think you could make an argument for putting SMU at 12. I can certainly see that. I feel like you have to put the Big 12 championship in as well, right? So you can throw either one of those teams out.
Well, I mean, I played with the bracket quite a bit even before this weekend came about, and it's kind of interesting because it doesn't really look like there's as much movement that could really happen. I mean, unless they completely blow up what their rankings last week, right? Because that's the thing that's interesting, is because they're releasing rankings every week, they're kind of setting a benchmark of what they have to do today, right? So I mean, I don't think Ohio State, Tennessee, and Indiana, who didn't play at all today, are all in, or not did play yesterday and Friday. I mean, they're all in. They're not going to fall out. I think the only drama, in my opinion, of what we could see today is, do they drop SMU out and put Bama in?
Well, I agree.
And if they do that, then I think all of the conferences are going to go nuts, because you have a team that had a relatively similar resume to all the other teams that are in the playoff, that made their conference championship game and lost, and then got knocked out. So why would you want to play in your conference championship game? I think they got to avoid that.
Yeah.
But I know they want Bama in.
Yeah, I know they want Bama in because they want the brand.
Yeah, and that number 12 team, the number 12 seed, looks like it's on a collision course with Notre Dame. And so what's more appealing, as a game, SMU versus Notre Dame or Bama versus Notre Dame, and I certainly hope that they keep Bama out and leave SMU in. I think I think they're going to I think there's going to be chaos no matter what, as far as like how these rankings go and how the conferences view how it works out. Because I mean, as it stands right now, like in my bracket that I've put together, Notre Dame has a game against SMU in the first round. Then their second round game is Arizona State. Notre Dame is going to be a double-digit favorites in both of those games. Meanwhile, Oregon is going to get the winner of probably like Tennessee and Ohio State. So their prize for being the number 1 seed is going to be the tougher game,
Yeah. I mean, I love to play the what if game here, so I'm going to do that. Obviously Georgia. I mean, here's who you're looking at with your first round buys, right? So Georgia, Oregon. What do you say then?
It's got to be I mean, it's got to be Oregon number 1 seed, Georgia number 2 seed, and then Boise's number 3, and ASU is the number 4 seed. The only question is, do they move Clemson above Arizona State? You know,
I think you have to move Clemson. I think SMU has to. And just hear me out here. Here's what I'm moving around. If we're going to say that playing in the championship game and losing doesn't hurt you, right? But obviously it can help you. So SMU would have to go to 12, right? Clemson would have to come up.
Yeah. See, in my rankings, I have Clemson moving up to 11, SMU falling to 12, because I feel like they're going to put Clemson above SMU because they won the head-to-head
right
in the championship game. I think they're not going to. I think they're not going to knock SMU out for losing. So I think SMU goes to 12, Clemson jumps to 11. That's what I have, and then right above Clemson would be Indiana, and then I think, you know, I think the interesting thing for me, whenever I was building this out, I built out 2 brackets. One of them they both have Oregon, UGA, Boise, and Arizona State as the top 4 seeds and getting the first round buys.
Okay.
And then I have Notre Dame getting the 5th seed, right? So they would be the highest ranked at large team. And then the question then becomes, you got Ohio State and Tennessee, right? That didn't play. They were previously ranked 6th and 7th. So with Penn State and Texas both losing, who were ranked 2 and 3 before, do they fall below Ohio State and Tennessee, or does the committee put them right above Ohio State and Tennessee? I think that's really the interesting thing that you might see today. Like, how far do they fall? The losers, I should say, of Big Ten and SEC, like, do they fall below the teams that didn't play, or do they keep them above them?
I'm trying to find a bracket builder online.
ESPN's bracket predictor thing shows the seedings, but it doesn't show like who. I think you might be able to put people there. I haven't really played with it.
I tried it, but it looks kind of terrible.
Yeah.
Let's see.
But I have a feeling that they are going to drop Penn State and Texas right below Ohio State and Tennessee.
I think you might be right here. Trying to find one so we can all do it together. Probably should have done this ahead of time. Bracket template. What is this? Final Four. 32 team college playoff. Jesus. No. I'm not seeing it. There we go. Oh, that's 2023. Apologize, guys. I'm not prepared, but you're around here from usual. You kind of know that's kind of the way it works. That. Playoff predictors, maybe mega pickers. Why's everything loading so slow today? I've got terrible lag.
Yeah, I used a spreadsheet last night, like come up with like what I thought they were going to do today, and then built a bracket based off of it.
Yeah, trying to figure some stuff out here. Let's see. What the hell is going on? I mean, watching all those games yesterday, there's so many. I can't keep it all straight in my head. It's just too much.
Yeah,
I'm not smart enough.
They've made it fairly complicated. But I'll tell you what I have as my first round games, right? Okay. Based off of a top 25. So I think they're going to release. I don't know how they're going to present it to us, but I think they're going to create a top 25 and then build a bracket. Build the seeds off of that, right? Because the way the wording works is that the number one seed in the playoff is the highest ranked conference champion, right? It doesn't matter if they're not number 1 or number 2 in the top 25. It's the highest rated conference champion, which is Oregon. Obviously, they've been number 1, so they're going to get a first round bye.
Yep.
Your second seed in the bracket is your number 2 or your second highest ranked conference champion, which I think is going to be us. And then the third seed is obviously the third highest ranked conference champion, which if you go by what they had ranked before was Boise State, right? They were the highest ranked. They won. So SMU was higher ranked than Boise before, but since Boise won, SMU lost. I think Boise is going to take the number 3 seed. And then the question is what do they do with Clemson? Does Clemson move, from they were 17 before, Arizona State was 15. Clemson beats number 8 SMU, but Arizona State only beats Iowa State, but they beat them pretty soundly. Like the Clemson game was fairly close. So do they move Clemson up above them?
I think you have to. I think you have to put in the Big 12 champion. I think you have to.
No, I know they're in. I'm saying they both get in. It's just a matter of who gets the fourth, like who becomes the higher rated conference champion. Is it Arizona State or is it Clemson? Because whichever one of them ends up ranked higher gets that 4th seed and the automatic bye.
All right, let's do this because I want to. Let's do share screen. Window. There we go. All right, we're gonna do this. All right, so you're number 1, Oregon, right?
Oregon, yes.
Number 2.
Are we talking about the seeds in the bracket?
Yeah.
Okay. I think that the number 3 seed is. I think the number 3 seed is going to be Boise. I think they're going to be the highest rated because I think the drama is just going to come down to whether or not they jump Clemson above Arizona State.
All right.
I don't particularly think they will. But I don't think it matters very much. It doesn't really matter that much.
Do you put Notre Dame here though?
Let's see. Notre Dame where?
In the number 4 spot.
Well,
or does it have to go to? I think it has to go to.
So the top 4 seeds. So it depends. So the confusing part is are you talking about the top 25 or are you talking about the top 12 seeds? Because Notre Dame can't get one of the top 4 seeds because they're not a conference champion, right? But they can they can certainly be ranked high in the top 25. I think it's obvious that Notre Dame is going to get the number 1 seed or the highest at large seed. So I think they will be seeded 5 no matter what, no matter how this all shakes out.
Excuse me. So who goes number 4?
I think it's going to be Arizona State.
You think ASU is going to jump all the way up to here?
Keep in mind, I'm not saying they're going to be 4th in the 4th rank wise. I think they're going to get the 4th seed because they will be.
Yeah, we're not talking about rankings. We're talking about seeds.
Yep, I think they will be number 4 because they will be the 4th highest ranked conference champion, and so they will get the 4th seed automatically.
All right,
in my opinion, but it could be Clemson there. It could be Clemson with the 4th seed.
I think
it's going to be SU.
I think Clemson, man.
Yeah, they may. I just, Clemson with 3 losses, Arizona State. Arizona State. Their coach made a great point at the end of the game. They only have 1 loss with their starting quarterback played.
Yeah.
So.
All right, number 5.
Number 5. So assuming that I'm my bracket, I have ASU at 4. So I'm going to put number 5. I have Notre Dame. Notre Dame is going to get the highest at large seed. And so at number 6, here's where the drama starts from what I did. So now you get into at number 6. Is that where you stick Penn State and Texas? Right?
Do
you put Ohio and Tennessee at 6 and 7?
I think Texas goes here. I think losing, because again, you're trying to say you're not going to punish anybody for losing that game. Okay.
Well, it's not as far as punishment. It's just not knocking them out of the playoff.
Right. But as close as they played Georgia, I don't feel like you could knock them past that point. And I don't think Notre Dame should benefit from that. So here's what I'm going to do. Where did you think Texas goes to then? We'll move Texas to there.
I think that Texas is going to go at 6.
Okay. I can go with that. That's fine. I can make that. I can make
And
that.
I think Penn State is 7 because I think two things are true, right? Texas, Penn. Hang on, I may have told you wrong. Let me see. No, that's right. I think Penn State and Texas are kind of attached to the hip. You know, wherever they
Right.
move Texas, I think they're going to move Penn State with them. And I think the same thing with Ohio State and Tennessee, right? Wherever Ohio State goes, Tennessee's going to be attached right behind them.
I think Tennessee should be 12, but whatever. Just me.
So so at 8 I have so I have Texas and Penn at 6 and 7. At 8 and 9 I have Ohio State and Tennessee.
What's up, Trenches? I just don't like Tennessee, so there's some bias there. I don't like anything in orange.
And then I have Indiana, Clemson, SMU.
Probably spelled Indiana wrong. And then Smoo. You're putting Smoo here?
Yep. So that's what I think. Now, I think it's going to be some version of this. You could have, like I said, they could drop Penn State and Texas below Ohio State and Tennessee, like move Tennessee and Penn State and Tennessee 5 and 6, and then it just depends on how much they make those guys fall that lost. And again, depending on how far they move Clemson up for beating SMU,
I think
they may move it because like in the rankings, right? In the rankings, ASU was what 15? Is that right?
Yeah, ASU was 15. Iowa was 16.
And they beat 16. They beat them soundly, right? It was a pretty resounding win. It was a statement win. Clemson was 17, so they were right behind. So Arizona State, Iowa State, Clemson was the 15, 16, 17. So Clemson beats SMU. Clemson's 3-loss team at 17 beats number 8. Needs a last-second field goal to win.
Literally a miracle field goal because
snatched it away.
Three things had to happen on that to make it happen. There was 18 seconds left or something crazy. They kicked the ball off. He runs the ball out to the 40 and make a snap throw down to pick up just enough to get close enough to a first down. And by the way, hats off to that guy. I think it was Golden. He caught the ball and dove on the ground. He didn't try to get the first down. He dove on the ground because he was aware of the clock. And that gave them 3 seconds. Had he have tried to get that first down or get more yards, they would not have had enough time to kick that kick. So great spatial awareness by that young man. And then this guy kicks a 56-yard field goal. It's the first field goal he kicked all season that was either game tying or game winning. And he did it in a championship game. I mean, that's impressive.
Yeah. But I think something similar to this. There could be some, there could also be, does Clemson or Arizona State, whichever one they leave at the bottom, right? Because the way it works is the 5th highest rated conference champion just gets in wherever they're ranked at, right? So if Clemson, if Clemson is the ACC champion, we know that, so they get in no matter what. But if they only move them in the top 25, if they only move them up to 13, then they will be the number 12 seed. They will get the lowest seed.
They'll bump out whoever's in 12.
Yeah, they'll bump out Bama, right? As long as they keep SMU in, right?
Right. Which I think they have to because
I think they do.
I think you've already set a precedence here, and it's now a problem. Now there's some other things here I want to talk about. Let's look at. I will say one more thing. They could, whoever the 5th or the 5th conference champion is, I think they could slot them ahead of. So if they, if they decide to put Clemson slightly above Arizona State, Clemson would go to 4. Arizona State would go down here at the bottom of the bracket, but they could move that 5th seed, like Clemson or Arizona State in the rankings. Again, they were 15 and 17 respectively. Yeah.
And Indiana was 9th. So it's possible, it's slightly possible that whichever one of those that they leave at the bottom that doesn't get the highest seed, like if they, if Arizona State stays above Clemson in the ranking, they could slot them above Indiana. Like Arizona State for winning resoundingly at 15, they could move them up above Indiana. I don't see it though, because again, Indiana said Indiana was the 9th ranked team in the country, and then you have the 15th ranked team in the country beating 16th resoundingly. I just don't think, if you take the brackets away, I don't think number 15 would jump all the way to 8.
I agree.
In a normal ranking system, I don't think the college football would do that. So I think Arizona State is going to stay, or Arizona State and Clemson are both going to stay at the bottom of the bracket, just above SMU.
I have to throw something else in here, and I'd love to get your take on it. Trenches, by the way, I love this. It's the fact of the team, whether your team is a kicker named Auburn or your team is Auburn. You just can't beat Georgia. Fact. Factually accurate, sir. I gotta ask a question here, and I think it's a fair statement. And we're talking about teams here. I mean, let's just be abhorrently clear. I don't think Arizona State has a shot in hell at beating a Georgia or an Oregon or even a Notre Dame. I just don't.
Yeah. No. I mean, there's some fatal flaws with the way that this bracket works.
Yeah, like having a Big Ten commissioner in the committee. That's a big fatal flaw. The thing that I want to point out is there's going to be another college football ranking release every week from here on out, right? That means next week we're going to see another college football ranking playoff, or we should. But there's only one game being played.
My understanding is they're not going to reseed after today. Like the seedings are going to be set. The bracket's going to be created.
I get that.
It's going to stay that way.
I get that.
They might make you're saying they're going to make another top 25?
No, they should make another top 12. And hear me out, and here's why.
Oh, I agree with you. I agree with you. They should have reseeded every time.
Army plays Navy next week. Okay. Army is currently 11-1. If they beat Navy, they're 12-1. Holy wow. 12-1. I don't care what conference you're in. You have to say, come on, man. That's got to be a playoff team. Look at how pissed off people got last year that FSU didn't get in. They were undefeated through regular season. I get it. But they didn't get in, and it was a top 4. They almost made the top 4. They certainly would have been in the top 12. And if you're going to say, and the playoff committee kind of started a thing this year with, hey, wins matter. We don't care how strong your schedule is. Wins matter, right? Because at one point, Georgia was fighting for its life, even though we had the hardest schedule in college football, because it was very clear that you could schedule nobody teams and be high in the ranking. And so when I look at this, I'm like, you got Army out here that's currently a ranked team. They're not unranked, and they've beat every team that they've played. A lot of them pretty soundly. 42-7, 24-7, 37-14, 42-14, 49-7, 44-10. 45-28. They beat Air Force 20-3. They did struggle a little bit against North Texas 14-3. They lost to Notre Dame 49-14. Beat Utsa 29-24. Beat Tulane in their championship game 35-14, and they play Navy next week.
So here's my argument for what you're saying. I think they're a group of 5 team.
Yes.
The committee was pretty much, unless you had some crazy outlier, I think the committee was going to put in the highest group of 5 conference champion, right? And Boise State has been that highest ranked group of 5 team all year. I think largely based off of, they play I think fair to say a slightly better schedule. And also they have a Heisman contender on their team. I think I would hear your argument if Clemson would have played, if Army would have played Notre Dame a little bit more competitively. But as it stands, I don't see I don't see how you could if we're going to talk, because strength of schedule is one of the things that's come up, about how you assess these teams, right? And so I just don't see, like, I certainly give them kudos for having a hell of a season. And if they could have, beat Notre Dame, that would have been, that would have definitely thrown a monkey wrench in everything. But as it stands now, I don't see how they could, I don't see how they could get in without having beat Notre Dame.
Let me ask you a question.
Sorry, I lost you there for a minute there. Say
no, you're good. I finally got my camera to work. It looks like.
Awesome.
Let me ask you this question: If Army beats Notre Dame, okay, they beat. Let's just imaginary land. They beat Notre Dame, right? That makes them 12-0. Where would you rank them? Where would you put them? Because currently, before yesterday, only one team was 12-0. Do you put a 12-0 team above an Alabama that's at 11? I think you should. I think wins have to matter at some point.
Sorry, I was muted. If they would have been undefeated with a win over Notre Dame, then I would certainly support. I would certainly not be surprised to have seen them at 12 and Bama not in, like Bama and Miami down below that, and them sitting on the edge. In fact, I'm not even so sure they wouldn't have been above maybe somebody like Indiana or something like that. I mean, they would have been right up there with Boise. It would have been interesting for sure. But I mean, that was what we were, that was kind of what I was cheering for. Is like, hey man, I want Army to beat Notre Dame, because that would have made things interesting. And I think the committee was waiting for that too. Like, they haven't really played a very tough schedule. Their conference is not the toughest in the world, so how well do they play against Notre Dame? That's going to be the thing that's going to determine, what we do with them,
I can see that to a point, but I also have to look at Georgia's strength of schedule and be like, dude, we played a tough ass schedule. We got a couple of losses. Because we won the SEC championship, we're kind of back in the driver's seat where we're supposed to be. Tennessee, on the other hand, or Alabama. Let's look at Alabama. I mean, I'm not ragging on Alabama. It just so happens that Alabama provides kind of the perfect example of what I'm talking about. They lost to a terrible Oklahoma team. Their loss against Tennessee is okay. That's an okay loss. But then they lost to Vanderbilt, a 50-50 team, a 500 team. And that team has 3 losses. They really don't have anything else on their schedule other than they lucked up and beat Georgia. I'll give you that. They lucked up and beat Georgia. Great. And I will say that because Georgia threw 3 picks in that game and was about one play away from coming back and tying that up. We know what happens when you go to overtime with Georgia. I'm just saying. This is a team that's got 3 losses on their schedule. Realistically, could have been more, right? So, rankings wise, an 11-1 team should be ranked higher than this Alabama team. They should be ranked higher than this Miami team. They should be ranked higher than Arizona State, but they're not. And if they go 12-1, that's embarrassing to not have them in a playoff scenario.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's tough to look at just records, right? Because, I mean, I don't know. You have to look at. I mean, let's be honest. You got a strength of schedule. They're obviously taking into account strength of schedule. Nobody knows how they're calculating it, right? But it's some algorithm that takes into account who you lost to, who have you beat, and
Absolutely.
And what type of, like, what kind of how many ranked teams did you play the whole year? Like, what kind of schedule did you play, right? So yeah. I think that's the thing that's kind of tough, right? That's what makes a group of 5 team very difficult, even if they go undefeated. I mean, ask Cincinnati a few years back. That's why they couldn't crack the top 4 to get in when they had Desmond Ridder and stuff.
Yeah.
Nobody gives them, gives the group of 5 a stock. It seems that there's always one good one every year that
Right.
stays up at the top, near the top, but doesn't quite crack the rankings. And
And
so this year they're kind of giving it to Clemson. I mean, not Clemson, but Boise State.
this is what I want to point out is that, and this is why I have such a rub
Now,
with the
well,
win.
let me ask you a quick question, real quick though. Like
Yeah.
on what you said, and I know you can't build the bracket solely based off of this, but of these 12 teams that we have on the screen right now, do you think Army would beat any of them?
Yes.
You do.
I think Army would beat Indiana.
I think every one of these teams right here would be double-digit favorites over Army.
They might be.
Every single
but I'm
one
just
of them.
telling you, I think they would beat Indiana.
Are you saying they would beat Indiana, or you think that Indiana is the only team on there that they could beat on any given Saturday?
I think they could beat Arizona State, and I feel like they could beat Indiana.
Yeah.
I don't think they could beat SMU. I don't know about Clemson. I don't feel like Texas, Penn State, or Ohio State, or any of those teams. They can't beat those guys. But we're not talking about beating everybody in the bracket. We're talking about being in the bracket.
No, I agree. But and this kind of goes to what I was talking about, what I was about to say earlier is, if we're trying to get the top 12 best teams in the country to put into a bracket, you can't give automatic bids to conference champions.
True.
I think there's a couple of flaws with the system. I think number one, anytime you have a 12-team bracket of any sort, right, you have to give 4 buys because a bracket has to be, in order to have a clean bracket, it has to be like 2, 4, 8, 16, like that, right?
Yeah.
So when you have 12, then you have to take out 4 teams so that you're left with 8 in the first round, and then you end up with 4 games in the second round. So you end up with that multiple. So you have to give 4 buys, right? So any 12 player bracket that you have, when you give the buys, the bracket assumes that you're giving the first round buys to the 4 best teams.
Correct.
Right? The 4 best teams, or the 4 best players, or the 4 best participants in your 12-person bracket has to be the 4 best teams. Otherwise, the other seeding starts to get funky, right? So you create a situation where the four buys that we're giving are not the 4 best teams. Boise State and Arizona State, or Clemson, Boise State, Arizona, or Clemson, 2 of those 3 teams are going to get 2 of the buys.
Yes.
Which means they are not. None of them are the top 4 ranked teams in the country. So therefore, you're going to be punishing a team that was higher ranked than them throughout the entire season.
Yep.
That now has to not only play an extra game, but they're going to have to play a tougher game.
Well, the real team here that gets all of the benefit and gets a free bye week is Notre Dame every year.
Yeah, they
join a conference.
That 5th seed, as long as Notre Dame is undefeated or 1 loss, like if they play a good schedule, I don't understand how Notre Dame is not a lock for the 5th seed almost every year.
Yeah, especially with and let's be fair. I mean, I'm not a fan of Notre Dame. I'm not, but I mean, they tried to schedule some decent teams. They could have scheduled anybody. They could have scheduled a bunch of cupcakes. They didn't. They scheduled Texas A&M, SEC team, whatever they are. They're an SEC team. They scheduled Louisville, decent team. Scheduled Georgia Tech, which I feel like is a decent team. Navy was ranked. They did schedule FSU, even though FSU fell apart, but that ranking was made before that. They play Army, and they play USC. I mean, that's a pretty decent damn schedule.
No, I think they've absolutely earned the spot that they're at. I mean, lost to Northern Illinois. It was kind of wild, but
right. But it's only 2 points, and it's way early in the season. So
yeah. So I mean, that's what I'm saying. I think they're always going to be, as long as they have a decent season, they're always going to be ranked high. They can get their ranking as high as they can get it, right? And then they don't have to play a conference championship game, so they're not going to run the risk of dropping in the rankings on conference championship Saturday. They're going to stay where they are, and so if you think about it, it would be really hard for Notre Dame to not be the 5th seed, because the people that play in the conference, like you look at this year, right? Oregon and Penn State are both ranked ahead of Notre Dame.
Yes.
One of them has to lose their conference championship game, and the loser of
Yep.
that game is probably going to fall below Notre Dame
Yep.
if Notre Dame is ranked, third or fourth or fifth in the country.
Yep.
And so Notre Dame is going to get bumped up by the loser that drops below them, and so I don't see how they don't end up ranked the highest, at large team as long as they have a good year. Now, certainly they could have had 2 losses and been down there where like Indiana's at or something like that, or even where Bama was at. But as long as they go like undefeated or 11-1 or whatever, they're going to be pretty much locked in that 5th seed.
Something I wanted to point out. The reason I have such a rub about the wins and losses column is because if we go back and we look at week 13, right? Indiana, they had 4 teams in the top 5 in the college football playoff rankings. They had Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State, and Indiana all ranked in the top 5. Right? Texas was the only one that ever ranked at 3. Indiana was 10-0, ranked above a Georgia that was 8-2. Georgia had played a much tougher schedule. Georgia had really, honestly, had played much better teams to that point, because at that point they had played. This is the teams that Indiana had played: FIU, Western Illinois, UCLA, Charlotte, Maryland, Northwestern, Nebraska, Washington, and Michigan State, and Michigan. Right. So none of those teams, 0 of those teams were ranked. 0. So when we go back and we look at, okay, who had Georgia played by that point? Georgia had played a Clemson, which, by the way, Clemson's in the playoff. They had played Alabama, which we lost that game. We had played Texas at their place at night and won that game. We lost to Ole Miss, and then we had just beaten Tennessee, who's also in the college football playoff. So Georgia's strength of schedule was infinitely harder at that point than anything Illinois had played. And that was the playoff football committee saying, strength of schedule doesn't matter. You've got to win your games. So to me, this is not to be, whatever. But I'm saying if the college football playoff is going to say that at the beginning of the rankings system, right? And now all of a sudden, wins don't matter. Oh, I'm sorry, that's bullshit. If wins mattered at that point and you played a bunch of damn nobodies, then wins should matter now if you've played a bunch of damn nobodies. So that's why I'm saying that Army should be in the top 12. If you can put a shitty team in the top 5 and they've played nobody, you should be able to put Army, you should be able to put them at least at 12. And that's where I come from on that. So.
Yeah, there's certain, even if you look at like Indiana, if you look at Indiana in that point in the season, there were a lot of people that were saying that Indiana should have been lower. Like they haven't played anybody, and everybody was like, well, let's see what they do against Ohio State, and they kind of get handled, and then that's when they tumble. They have that one loss, and then they tumble all the way down to the bottom of the bracket.
But hear me out. If you would have had Army at that same level right now, they've lost 1 game since then. They would still be in the top 12.
Yeah, I know, and I know it's hard to say this, but I think if Army played Indiana's schedule, Army would be 6-6, bro.
I don't know.
I don't think that they would run through through Indiana's schedule, and I think they benefited largely from playing in a conference with, where the second best team in their conference is Tulane.
I don't disagree. I'm not disagreeing with that. What I'm saying is that you're making the argument of strength of schedule, strength of the team, this and this, right? Which I agree. We want the best teams that are the best. That's who we want. But if the college football playoff committee is saying that doesn't matter, which is what they said in week 13, then they can't turn around and say, well, it's who you played that mattered. Well, no, in week 13, you said it was wins. Now it's something else. And what I want is I want consistency from the college football playoff committee.
Well, I think both things are true. I think they want wins, and I think they want strength of schedule. I think they want it all, right? I think they've they've shown that through the frustration of exactly what you're saying. Like at certain points, they've kind of valued who you've won, who you've beat, and at certain times they've valued record, right?
Right.
And so I think the reality is that they are kind of doing both, right? And while at the same time factoring in the eye test. The frustrating part about all of it is there's no transparency. There's no transparency at all, right? So I think going forward, if they're going to keep a format like this where, and I think they almost have to, where they, where the bracket is based off of humans voting, I think one thing they have to do is either televise their discussion.
They're never going to do that, but you're right.
Or number two, have a transparent formula or transparent ideology that they follow.
Yes.
To how you determine how team A is better or worse than team B, who have not played each other and not even played common opponents. How do you rank those two teams? Like, what is your formula or what is your philosophy for telling me A is greater than B when A has not played B and A has not played any of the same teams that B has played? Like, how do you make that ranking? Because when you got common opponents and all that stuff, it's easy, right? But like when you have a situation like what you're saying, where you're trying to evaluate Army, how do we evaluate Army and Indiana together? Like how do you say which team is better than the other? How do you justify putting an 11-1 Army at 24, and a 1-loss Indiana team at 10 or 9 or wherever they're going to end up at,
Yeah, and the other thing that throws a wrinkle in the whole thing is that you can have a team, and let's just be completely honest. Let's say that for some ridiculous reason, you get an unranked team playing in the Big Ten or whatever. Say they have a disaster of a year. Conference consumes itself. You get a team playing, and they're unranked, but they win and they play against a ranked opponent, maybe the best in the conference, and then they win that game. They get an automatic go.
Yeah, that's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. We were talking about that last night. Like me and Chris were talking about that last night. Yeah, that's going to happen. Where you're going to have somebody that's going to get one of these automatic, not necessarily an automatic first round bye, but they're going to get an automatic place in the tournament, in the 12-team tournament, while being an unranked team.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at like right now in the top 4 teams in the ACC are ranked. The top 4 teams in the Big 12 are ranked.
Yeah, it's going to take an outlier, I think.
I mean it's going to be
most of the time
weird.
the top 2 teams are going to be ranked,
right?
But it could certainly happen with one of these group of 5 teams. That's where it's going to happen, right? You're going to have a group of 5 team like Boise that is going to play in their conference championship. They're going to be ranked high. Like there's going to be a group of 5 team like Boise or Army, somebody that's an outlier in their own conference. They're going to be ranked high. The second place team is going to be unranked, and Boise or whatever, that one given Saturday, there's going to be an injury or the wind's just going to blow the wrong way and they're going to lose that game. And then they're going to have to put in both of those teams. They're going to have to put in the unranked winner of the conference championship. And
I mean, you've got the Mountain West Conference, which is Boise and UNLV, right? These teams in conference are 1-7-0, 1-6-1. They could easily be 5-2 and win their conference at 5-2. Lose their out of conference games, not be ranked at all. UNLV was number 2 in their conference. They were barely ranked at 20. So
yeah, I mean, I guess going back on what I was just saying, I think that the team that gets in, the group of 5 champion that gets in, is the highest ranked champion of the group of 5. So it's very likely, I guess, that they would be, that it would be a ranked team. But I mean, you look at,
but it is certainly possible.
It's going to happen. It's going to happen, and that's why I think they need to, like, after this season, they need to fix it. There needs to be. I almost kind of hope that SMU gets left out for Bama, because I think that would make not only the ACC, but I think it would make every conference throw up a red flag and be like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
A team that has a good enough resume that's similar to all these other teams, particularly the teams that didn't even play on Saturday, like Indiana. SMU's got we got the same kind of situation as Indiana, whereas Indiana didn't have to play. They had to sit home and they get in and we get knocked out for losing. And I think every conference would say, hey, that could be us.
Yeah.
That could be us.
I know this is going to make some people. Yeah.
I think I think it needs to force them to change it. And I don't know if you want to do it now, but I think, I got a couple of ideas on how to fix this. It's not that hard to get to from where we are, but
if we're talking about strength of schedule being a component, right? And we're talking about quality wins that matter. Okay. I think there's an argument to be made also for South Carolina getting in. I know there's a lot of people disagree with it, and that's fine, but I still want to have the conversation. You're looking at a South Carolina team that has had a rough schedule. They played Ole Miss, they played Alabama, they played Texas A&M. I mean, they played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They played half of their schedule were ranked teams. They still walked away at 9-3, and they played in their rivalry game and they beat Clemson. Which, and by the way, in case you missed it, Clemson just beat SMU and won the ACC. They just beat the ACC champion a week ago. And if you watch that team play, I don't want to play them. They look good. They look dynamic. They look electric. I mean, they got a lot of juice over there right now. And I feel like if you're going to talk about wins that matter, the last game that Alabama won was against Auburn, which is a nobody right now. And South Carolina just beat the ACC champion. I would be completely okay with, based off of that, South Carolina jumping Alabama. Yes, I get they lost a heads up months ago. But we're talking about teams right now. That's why we come out with a new ranking every week. South Carolina, to me, has as legitimate of a argument to make as Alabama does.
Yeah, I mean, and this was something that last night when I was talking with it, like I said with Chris, this is exactly what we knew was going to happen with this, right? Like, so if you go to a 12-team playoff, the debate is going to shift to who should get the 11 and 12, like who's getting in there. But then when you sit back and you think about it, like whoever is going to get in, I mean, I guess it's the fun conversation to talk about, but that like historically speaking, I don't think those teams are going to win the playoff, right? So now you're just interested in who's going to make it in.
Yeah.
But if you look at those teams on the cutoff, like the ones that are not going to get in, which I don't think, I don't think Alabama's going to get in either.
Right.
But if you look at those teams on the edge, like South Carolina, I mean, they all had a situation where they could have handled business and got in. You know what I mean? Like,
not losing to Vanderbilt.
Yeah, not losing to Vanderbilt. Yeah. I mean, South Carolina, unfortunately, they lost out to Alabama in the head-to-head,
Yeah.
They lost their 3 toughest games pretty much. I mean, unless you count the Texas A&M game when they played them, but they, the 3 toughest games they played all year, they lost them, or 3 of I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. 3 of the toughest games they played all year. They played a pretty tough schedule, but they have some quality wins on there too. But I think that's the same for just about any of those guys that are sitting right there. You look at Alabama, I mean, they got some quality wins too. They got a win over us, they got wins over LSU, they got, and so yeah, I mean, I definitely think there was some Bama bias, unfortunately, for South Carolina. I think South Carolina has a better resume than Alabama, in my opinion. They do, other than the fact that Alabama beat them.
Yeah, and this is always a stat that whenever you start talking like this, you got to realize that this is not a national championship contender. Their losses are better, right? So they have a loss to Ole Miss, which is
their losses are better. I mean, their resume is better than
by far.
The lost teams.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, they beat Vanderbilt. I thought you guys should know that.
But again, I mean, you have to sit back and look like, man, are we really sitting here debating who's going to sneak into the bracket? It's like,
No, yeah. Let's
it's only interesting because it's three SEC teams that are right there on the edge, and they chose Bama, right?
right.
If this was like,
Missouri.
like Illinois, Syracuse, or like Missouri, or even even Missouri, but like if it was non-SEC teams, like we certainly wouldn't care that much but I don't want to see Bama get in just because I'm tired of hearing SEC bias, Bama bias, and and it's certainly there's certainly some bias there because I mean, let's be honest. I mean, I think people would rather see Bama in the playoff. I think they're going to draw bigger viewer numbers on the games whenever they're playing against whoever it is, whoever the other 12th ranked team is, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So let me take a sip of the haterade here real quick. Okay.
But I don't want it to go down like that. I don't want it to be rated on TV rankings.
I want to point something out, and this is important. This is important to me. So I'm going to go back to 2023. Right. Alabama was ranked number 4 and got in the college football playoff committee. Nick Saban retires. Let's go back to 2022. 2022, Alabama ranked number 5. 2021, Alabama ranked number 1. 2020, Alabama ranked number 1. 2019, Alabama was at 12. They had a loss and it knocked them way down there. But before that, they were up at the 5 spot. Here's what I want to point out to you. Bama fans, I made a video for y'all. I made several videos for you guys back earlier in the season. And I tried to explain to you guys that you cannot replace Nick Saban with some coach out of the Pac 37 or whatever it is. Nick Saban is the greatest football coach of all time. I'm a Georgia fan. I hate Alabama, and I will tell you that every single stream I get on. That is the best college football coach we have ever seen in college football. Nobody has done it better. Now, Kirby Smart's on pace to match, but to date, he is the best that has ever done it. And he taught a lot to Kirby Smart, not taking that away from him. But he's gone. You guys have went from being in the top 4 to now not even making a 12-team playoff unless you get some bias. And that, Bama fans, is what I tried to warn you about early in the season. You need to temper your expectations. Next year is probably going to be worse. So if you are an Alabama fan and you are sitting here saying we should make the playoff or we shouldn't make the playoff, you guys lost to Vanderbilt. You need to take that and go hug that in the corner and cry about that. I would be jumping up and down, stomping my feet. Your coach, in my opinion, is not winning off of his coaching. He is winning off of his talent. The Alabama roster is one of the most talented rosters in all of college football, and it ain't close. You could say Texas is the best. Then you could say Alabama, maybe Ohio State, and in Georgia. You can make those arguments. But I'm telling you, this Alabama team, with the talent they have in it, should easily be in a number 1, 2, 3, or 4 spot. Easily. I don't feel like he is the coach that Alabama deserves. And Alabama fans, if you don't get in, I don't feel sorry for you. Okay. Now let's I don't know if you want to add to that or not, but
I mean, I was just going to say, I agree with you. I mean, I'm not as harsh on Kalen DeBoer as that. I think that was a killer spot for anybody to step into to fill to fill Saban's shoes. I don't think it's a knock on Kalen DeBoer. I think he's a great coach. I just think I think any coach was set up to fail stepping into that role. I think he's actually done fairly decently because I think the one thing that he has failed to do that Saban was able to do masterfully was the old Saban rat poison thing, right? Like it's hard to go out. I mean, anybody that's ever played any organized sport understands that no matter how good you are relative to your competition, it's hard to just go out there and win every time.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Even if you're the better team, you're just not going to win every single time. And in college football, we as fans have kind of come to the point where like, hey, my team's better than that team. They should win by 40.
Right.
And it's like, it just doesn't work that way in sports. There's all kinds of variables. There's all kinds of things that go on that make it where, hey, on any given Saturday, any given Sunday, any given day of the week when a team is playing, that the worst team could beat the best team. And
Yep.
Saban did a great job of making his players understand that and understand that, hey, nothing is given to you. You got to go out there every Saturday and you got to earn it. You got to leave it all on the field. You got to prove that you're the best team. You're not going to be anointed the best team by the newspaper or ESPN or game day. They're going to talk about how good you are.
Yep.
But it doesn't matter unless you go out there and win the game on Saturday.
Correct.
And that is a difficult thing to do in sport.
Week in, week out.
Yeah, and college football coaches in particularly are asked to do that, to rein their team in more than any other sport across any other level of competition, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You're dealing with kids, hyper emotional kids that that the TV and everything is saying, hey, you're the number one team in the country.
Right.
And now we got to go out and play Vanderbilt. And it's like, oh, we're gonna crap all over their face. And it's like, I mean, you got to do it. I mean, Vanderbilt's not going to stand out there and let you do it.
Right.
You got to actually go do it. And I
And
just don't think Kalen DeBoer was able to do that. I don't think he commanded the team enough. And I don't think anybody would have been able to command the team and the attention of these football players to kill the rat poison like Saban did. Saban demanded these guys to go out there on Saturday and play their best. And that's why I said, I don't think Saban, in my opinion, this Alabama team would not have lost to Vanderbilt and to Oklahoma if Saban was the coach.
Yep, I agree. Let's talk about the game we really want to talk about now. We've talked about the other ones. Let's talk about the Georgia-Texas game. We've gotten out here a pretty good ways away from it, but I want to get into this game. This an instant classic, in my opinion. Just an absolutely chess match. This whole game was a chess match. We saw interceptions. We saw fumbles. We saw a close game at the half. We saw a rally from Texas to try to come back. In the first half, it was Texas, and in the second half, it was pretty much just all Georgia. So, what's your first emotional response about this game?
I mean, my first emotional response is Gunnar Stockton just coming in and, of course he didn't blow everybody away, but man, he certainly did not make himself a liability out there, other than the pick that
Correct.
he threw, which, that had the potential of being pretty bad. But outside of that, I mean, he played his tail off to not, the team played better when he came in there. It was the spark. I mean, I think they even said this, but I believe that first drive that we had in the second half, we got more yards in that one drive than we got the entire first half of the game.
Yep.
I know I know Stockton that the change of quarterback is going to take credit, for a lot of that. But this Georgia has done this all year, right? Has struggled in the first half, come out in the second half, and be a pretty much completely different team, right? They make adjustments, and that goes to coaching, man. It was a great coached game. I mean, Kirby going for it on a couple of times, then the fake punt. Yeah, I mean, he was leaving it all out there on the table, man. And it was a great game.
That was incredible. A couple of different things here I want to talk about. First off, my emotional response is I was not as invested in this game as I probably was in some of the other games we played earlier in the season, simply because, yes, you want to win the SEC championship game, but this game was not season ending. So I feel like there was the what's the word I'm looking for? Lack of necessity to win this game, maybe as a driving factor. But I still feel like there was a lot that went well for both teams and a lot that went wrong. One of the things I do want to point out that Georgia did extremely well, which I don't care who you are. If you watched the 2 or 3 games preceding this game, you never would have said Georgia is going to hold Texas to 31 yards. They are not going to hold Texas to 1.1 yards a carry. It is not going to happen. And that's exactly what Georgia did.
That was the deciding factor in the game, in my opinion.
Yes. Texas could not run the ball. Could not. The biggest gain they had all day was Wisner ran for 15 one time. And by the way, that counted for almost 30% of his yardage. Just now, when you look at receiving, they threw the ball all over Georgia, 358 yards. They averaged 13.3 yards a carry. And I think that was Steve Sarkisian's game plan. Was he felt like he didn't have to run the ball. He felt like Georgia was going to probably try to prepare to stop the rush, which we did. But he thought that they were going to make it happen throwing the ball. And he was not able to do it. Georgia made Texas one-dimensional. I feel like Kirby Smart out-coached Steve Sarkisian. I felt like the defensive mind of Kirby Smart outmatched the offensive mind of Steve Sarkisian.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think Sark got out coached, and I don't think it was like a trend throughout the game. I think there were just key moments where Kirby just fooled him.
You mean like the timeout on the made field goal that then went to a missed field goal?
Yeah, I mean, and there were, like I said, and then the fake punt. I mean, us as fans, Georgia faking a punt. I mean, when you say that, you immediately think back to Justin Fields and that craziness. You know what I mean? Like, and it was a great play call and a great moment in the game. You know, Thorson had been hurt. We got a backup punter out there. You know, Tennessee's trying to, they're trying to maintain some field position. They're expecting kind of a poor punt. They're trying to set up for good field position. And so when the ball was snapped, like almost all the Tennessee players turned their back to the punter. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I don't think that Sark was just outcoached all throughout the game. I think there were some key moments where he just got like fooled. But yeah. I think Texas. I think I kind of feel for Texas because I see some of Georgia in them where they had a game plan that I think could have beat us, but they killed themselves with penalties, with turnovers. They just made execution mistakes out there. I mean, they had so
that one holding call.
Yeah, they had penalty after penalty that just stalled their drives, and it's discipline. I don't know how loud it was there. I don't know if it felt like a home game. I mean, a away game for them. I'm sure it was loud. I'm sure it was loud for both teams. I mean, Texas had fans there too. So, I know Sark felt that they were kind of getting the wrong end of the stick on the calls, particularly holding calls. But yeah, I mean, I think Sark coached fine. I think Texas is a great team. I think we got a situation where Georgia is us to Texas is like Alabama to us. Like I think he's just hitting it's kind of like a bugaboo for Sark, man. It's like when he gets out there against Georgia, they play well, they play fantastic all year, and then when it's like time to play in the big game against Georgia, like you can be as prepared as you want to, and things can go right until they don't. Yeah, and that's what it just seems like to me. It seems like just weird things. Like you have all these penalties. Ewers seems to like to throw the ball to Bulldog players more than he does his own team for some reason. I mean, what is that? Like, I think he's thrown 4 or 5 picks now in the 2 games. But I also don't anticipate word on Carson Beck before they seed this bracket, though. You're muted if you're talking, by the way.
How in the hell did I get muted? I don't know. must have clicked on something. Yeah, they're not going to give you any information on him. They're just going to say they're just making sure he's good to go. That's what you're going to hear. We're still having some doctors look at it. We just want to make sure he's good to go. We're just he's doing pretty good warm ups. That's what you're going to hear.
Yeah.
Maybe really wrong. He may come out there after they see Georgia at the number 2 spot, and then like 3 days later you'll hear Carson Beck is actually went in for surgery.
Hey, out for the season,
or it was seeded or some shit like that. And I don't know what that means for Georgia. I mean, that's crazy to say.
Yeah, you saw all the memes last night. Was hey, Georgia lost their starting quarterback. That means they're not in the playoff, right? Talking about
Florida State.
That's the Florida State last year. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
as it turns out, we haven't had a quarterback all year, so that's okay.
Yeah, it would have been interesting had we lost that game by, I don't know, let's say 10 points, right?
Yeah.
And Carson Beck didn't play the second half. Would the committee Florida State us? Would they have said, we're not sure Georgia without Carson Beck, we're going to leave them out of the playoff. They've set the precedent for that. Like it or not, they did set the precedent for that last year.
Yeah, they did. Well, here's another interesting fact I wanted to point out to you guys. There's a couple of 3 different things here. Number one, Georgia has been a pass-heavy team, super pass-heavy. This game, that was clearly not the plan. Georgia rushed the ball almost twice as much as they threw the ball. And that had to be by design. So for all of those out there that were saying Carson Beck, Mike Bobo, whatever, I'm going to tell you right now, Georgia run the ball for 141 yards. That's what we ran the ball for. And if you look right here at these two stats, Trevor Etienne ran 16 times for 6 yards a carry. Nate Frazier ran for 6 times for 47 yards. Between those two guys, you're averaging 6.85 yards a carry. I love Nate Frazier. They should play him more often. He's a bruiser. He's a great player. Love that guy. The receiving yards, Arian Smith, if the ball is past the line of scrimmage, Arian Smith should never be a target, ever. Ever. He's got boat paddles that are hybrid feet for hands. He can't catch anything. He had 5 receptions for 41 yards for 8 yard average, but I bet you he dropped the ball 5 times. Just another frustrating performance by him. Now, that having been said, Georgia stonewalls Texas again, 1.1 yard a carry. They threw all over us. Didn't matter. And I'm going to come down here to the defense because everybody was talking about this. Everybody's like, Georgia's not going to be able to put up that kind of defensive performance against Texas again. It's just not going to happen. That was a fluke. Last time we had 7 sacks and 10 tackles for loss. That's what we had last time. Look what we had this time. 6 sacks and 15 tackles for losses. This was an even better performance on defense. So for the haters out there that say Georgia couldn't do it twice, this is where I am saying that Kirby Smart outcoached Steve Sarkisian. Steve Sarkisian knew what Georgia's game plan was on defense, and it was to get in the quarterback's face, and they did it. Oh, Quinn Ewers is not going to throw 3 interceptions. You're right. He's going to throw 2. That is so incredibly dominant on Georgia's defense. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you guys. Georgia played an outstanding football game. We got to overtime, and Georgia wins the game based on defense. We held them to a field goal. They had to kick a field goal, and then we go in there, and we get a touchdown. So, to me, I feel like they outcoached them. You there?
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. I mean, I certainly think. I mean, I certainly think he was. He was outcoached. I mean, it's definitely telling that Texas has a great running game. They've shown it the last 2 weeks, and then Georgia, if you go back and look at UMass and Georgia Tech, couldn't stop anything. Couldn't tackle. So that didn't seem to be a trend that we saw in this game. There was only maybe 1 or 2 times where I was just like, man, wrap the guy up, but
Yeah.
you didn't see these, a run
Bouncing
to the middle
off
that
ping
bounces
pong
out. Yeah. Bouncing out and getting 20, 30 yards. You didn't see that in the running game.
I thought Georgia did an outstanding job sealing the edge in this game.
Yeah, they did. You could tell that there was an emphasis on stopping the run, wrapping up, and but I think one of the things you see in both of the games that we've played against Texas is we've kind of owned the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
I mean, we have. I mean, I know Texas has got guys out there, but I mean, you go back. I don't know where I heard Kirby talking about it, but he was saying, that it may have been in the post game press conference where, you look at some of these other conferences. They're out here recruiting. They're spending their recruiting time going and getting all these big weapons on offense, and it's like you got to get the big guys in the trenches because it doesn't matter what else you have. If you can't win the line of scrimmage, if you can't win the line of scrimmage in football at just about at any level, whoever wins the line of scrimmage is going to win the game.
Hey, we're talking to you, Deion Sanders. You got to have an offensive and defensive line, my guy.
And that's just, I think that's played a huge part in both the games against Georgia. I mean, we were able to get some pressure. I mean, we were able to get. I mean, it was almost a carbon copy of the first game as far as the pressure on Ewers getting sacks and
penetration.
Just being in his face, forcing mistakes, and it was a carbon copy of the first game. And even on offense, we were able to keep them out of the backfield for the most part.
Yeah. Now I do want to point out a few more stats, and we got to talk about this stud right here. We got to talk about Gunnar Stockton. My God, what a performance by this young man. Gunnar Stockton, and for those of you who don't realize it, Carson Beck played in that game all the way up until the fourth quarter, right? He threw the ball 13 times.
Well, Carson Beck played into the half. He went out
half.
half.
Yeah. So he threw the ball 13 times. They let Gunnar Stockton throw that ball 16 times. Now, a lot of them were check down passes and short, whatever. I get that. But he still let him throw it.
Yeah. Well, I went back and looked. I think in that first half, I think we only had just over 20-something plays. I mean, we didn't. I mean,
we only had the ball for like 9 minutes.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you look at our first half drives, 3 plays, punt, 4 plays, punt, 8 plays, 3 plays, 4 plays. That was it.
Yeah.
So what it was 7, 15, 19, 21. Yeah, we made 22 plays in the first half was it.
Yeah. Now let me point this out to you. And
I think they had a 2-to-1. I think they had a 2-to-1 time of possession.
Yeah,
at the end of the first half, and then we ended up winning the time of possession by the time the game was over.
Correct. We ended up winning the game with 32 minutes of possession, and they had 28.
Yeah.
And in the first half, I mean, it was completely lopsided in both halves. So in the first half, it was all Texas, and the second half, it was all Georgia.
And I think
another one of those coaching things.
Yeah, I think that's also a big, I guess, positive for Gunnar Stockton is he was able to go out there and kind of manage the game. Yeah, he threw a bad pick, but I mean, I think his first snap, they threw the ball down the field to Arian Smith, and Arian Smith caught the ball, strangely enough,
on the right side.
Yeah, and so I think that was one of my biggest takeaways from Gunnar Stockton was I mean he didn't go out there and put up crazy numbers, but he was able to keep the offense moving. He sustained drives, and that was something that we weren't able to do in the first half. Now that is that squarely on his shoulders, or did we make some coaching adjustments? Did we figure out some things? I think it's probably a little bit of both, right? I think your main guy goes down and you bring in the backup quarterback. Just about every team that hypes them up because you want to show the guy you're behind him, so get a little bit of a spark. I mean, Alabama did it to us twice.
Yeah. Well, here's something else I want to point out. When Gunnar Stockton came into the game, there was a huge response from the crowd. They had complete support. This young man had complete support. Nobody went, oh, my God, not Gunnar Stockton. What are we doing? And for those of you who don't know, Gunnar Stockton holds the state record in Georgia for high school passing yards. He's elite. He's really, really elite. And we saw that. He didn't seem skittish. He didn't seem worried. He didn't seem concerned. It did not seem like the moment was too big for him. Now, granted, he threw a pick, but Quinn Ewers, who has been a starter for quite some time, who's also highly rated and recruited, threw 2. And we've heard people brag about how good Texas's defense was. This young man went 75% and threw one INT, but I won't say he won the game for Georgia, but he certainly didn't lose it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I would challenge pretty much any team in the country that's not currently ranked in the top 4, not playoff seeding. I'm talking about ranked in the top 4, to say, you know what, you're going to go to your championship game. You're going to play against the number 2 team in the country. You're going to have to switch to your backup at halftime. How do you feel about that?
So
and be like, I'm good with it. There's almost nobody.
So check this out. The new AP poll just came out.
Oh,
so they got
that.
Oregon, Georgia, Notre Dame, but they kept Texas and Penn State above Ohio State and Tennessee. But what's interesting is they put. I don't think this isn't going to end up matter. Actually, I guess it is. They put Alabama above SMU and Clemson.
Yeah, I don't have it on. Is that on ESPN or where are you looking at that at?
ESPN hasn't quite updated it yet. I'm looking at it on apnews.com. But they pretty much have the same ranking that we had earlier. They have Arizona State above Clemson, but strangely, they have Alabama above SMU and Clemson as well. They didn't move Clemson above SMU. They left them below SMU.
See, that's crazy. Let me share this tab instead. This just came out. Get out of here with that. Oregon, Georgia, Notre Dame, Texas. Okay.
So the AP is keeping Texas and Penn State above Ohio State and Tennessee. So that's what I thought too. So this top part of the bracket is exactly what we predicted earlier.
We had Oregon, Georgia, Boise State, Arizona State, Notre Dame, Texas.
Yeah, I mean that was the seeding though. Not the top 25. Yeah, this top 25 is pretty much what I thought was going to happen.
I still don't feel like Alabama should be where they're at.
No, I mean I don't think it's going to end up mattering because. So here's the precedent they're setting, though, right? So Clemson gets in no matter what because they're a conference champion. So they're going to get one of 11 or 12. But because the AP has ranked Alabama above SMU, now again, the AP's job is to rank the top 25 teams. So they're going to have kind of a different opinion, I guess, than the committee. The committee's got to come in here and say who makes it into the playoff, right? So do we knock SMU out of the playoff? Because the AP has essentially done that with that ranking. Because Clemson would move up to 12, knocking SMU down to 13. Yeah.
I think that would show that playing in a conference championship game can hurt you because SMU was 8.
Yeah. Clemson being 13, I mean, doesn't matter as far as them making it into the playoff. I'm looking at the chat. Clemson being 13 doesn't matter as far as the playoff. They're going to get in. In this scenario, they would get in with the lowest seed, so they would be seeded 12th and have to play against Notre Dame in the first round. But what's interesting about this AP poll is that the AP has put SMU behind Alabama, which in that philosophy would mean SMU would be out of the playoff because Clemson would move up to 12th seed and Alabama would stay at the 11th seed and SMU would have to move down.
Yeah, but again, we're arguing about, 11th, 12th, and 13th seed. So.
Yeah, but it is the AP. It's the AP. And like I said, the drama that could come from this is that if they leave SMU out and put Alabama in, then you're opening up a can of worms where all the other conferences are going to complain and say, hey, the loser of our conference championship game can be left out of the playoff, even though they lost on a last-second field goal. It's like, I get it if we lost 40 points. But you lose on a last-second field goal, and we are a one-loss team, and you're going to drop us out of the playoff. That could be any conference.
Yep.
And you're going to set a precedent where teams – I mean, it's already on the edge of that, but you're going to set a precedent where teams are not going to want to play in their conference championship game. You're going to want to be Indiana, Tennessee, or Ohio State rather than SMU.
Yep, because it doesn't help you. And in this particular case, I mean –
yeah, I agree. I agree with Jason. Yeah, that is a huge statement. Yeah, that they kept both ACC teams behind Ohio State.
Yeah, I agree.
I meant behind Bama, not Ohio State. Sorry, Bama.
I knew what you meant. Let's get back to Gunnar Stockton a second, and then we're gonna wrap it up. If you watch this game, I have only seen one other hit of that caliber that Gunnar Stockton took running for the touchdown, and that was Jadeveon Clowney against Michigan.
Yeah, that was a brutal hit. I mean, when they first showed it, I was definitely like, and I need to look at targeting on that. And then when they showed the replay, I was like, I mean, we've had some hits like that where they picked up the flag, and it was like, when it kind of goes into the whole offensive player lowering his head, because Gunnar did. He lowered it to absorb the hit, and it kind of resulted in what we had. But man, the whole game was that way. I mean, you go back to the Dan Jackson hit on the receiver over the middle.
Yep.
That was just brutal, and no targeting flag. Like they decided to let these guys play.
Did you notice that they didn't throw that ball across the middle to that guy ever again?
Oh yeah,
Is that red nitro 22? No, bro, I'm not running across the fucking middle again. Don't even throw me the ball.
Well, you saw they had an incomplete pass over the middle like that, where the receiver got a little alligator arms. He went up to catch the ball and then snatched his arms back down before the ball got there, and ended up missing it, because
That's why
he knew he was about to get popped in the ribs. So
Dan Jackson's out there flying around looking for something to eat.
But hey, Gunnar Stockton. This is what we said about Gunnar Stockton. If you've watched this kid play in high school or anywhere, like he's one of those guys. You can like him or not as far as your quarterback, but he's not a guy that's going to slide, man. He's like a Haynes Keen type guy. He's
going to bring it to you.
He's got what it takes to kind of just put the team on his back and go out there and get his jersey dirty. You know what I'm saying? Like he's one of these guys that just plays better when his jersey's got some grass all over it.
And let's talk about that hit was a sick hit, no lie, hardest hit I've seen in probably a decade.
Yeah, it laid him backwards on his back and knocked his helmet off.
Funny, like when he went backwards, it like kind of spun in a weird weird way. Yeah. But here's what I'll say: he hung on to the ball.
He did. Yep.
Oh my God. I think there's maybe 3 people on planet Earth that would do that, and the other 2 are like Thor and Thanos. Like it's the only 2 that would have held on to that damn ball.
The Texas guy held on to it too, which was surprising. I was like, man, both of those plays were just very physical on both sides. Like hold on to the ball, delivering a hit. Like it was just, I don't know. That's the kind of football you want to see played, in the SEC, man. That's why they say it just means more here, man. You got guys like that on both sides. You got, 4 and 5 star guys just colliding, man.
They put their bodies out there. All right, one more thing here. I forgot what the hell I was going to say. Jesus. Oh God, it was something good too.
Oh man, I hate when that happens.
Okay, no, I got it. So what is your take on Mike Bobo? I've got mine. Mine's well known. I wanted to get yours.
So my take on Bobo, I'm not the biggest Bobo fan. I'm not a fire Bobo kind of guy. Bobo averages, 30 plus points a game, like throughout his offense coordinating career. I think there's times where I have some questions about, like, why does he try to be cute? Like, why do we do certain things? Because you know what I mean? Like, there's times, like, you look back last week to the overtime. Why did it take so long for us to just give it to ETN? I mean, give it to Nate Frazier. It took us to get into the 8th playoff before we tried to run Carson Beck on a quarterback sneak before we handed the ball.
So the damn running back.
Frazier, and let's let the running back run it in when we got to those, when we got to the alternating 2-point conversions. And then there was a time last night where it was just like, man, just hand the ball off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, just hand it to the guy.
There was that one time, I think it was early in the 4th or late in the 3rd or something. We tried to get cute with like this triple option thing. I don't know what the hell it was.
Yeah.
Why is this necessary?
Yeah.
It's like
exactly.
we're not really struggling to move the ball right now.
Yeah, we're not having to fool them, so I don't understand. Like I just think he gets cute sometimes and like misses he tries to do something else other than just go out there and play football. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
I get
for
it that a lot of Bobo haters are hating this, snap and throw it out to the receiver thing. But I challenge you to be an offensive coordinator for a team that wants to throw the ball but doesn't have receivers that can get open or can catch the ball.
Yeah.
How do you run an offense when your only receiver that can actually get open can't catch the ball?
Yep.
And the way you play that is you just throw it to the guy. Like it's basically a glorified run play. Is you just snap the ball and throw it out there to him. So I hate that play. I hate seeing that play because I feel like it's like admitting failures and announcing it to the other team. But you're also saying, hey, this is what we're going to do. We're going to throw it out there to one of our playmakers, and you're just going to tackle them.
Yeah. If you can't, if you can stop it, stop it.
Yeah, and it commits them to keeping people out on the edge too, so you can start running the ball. It kind of lightens up the box a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I agree what Fatality is saying there. I said that to somebody too, that Bobo's not the one out there dropping passes. He calls the plays for the ball to be thrown down the field, and then the guys drop it. And so it's like, as an offensive coordinator, you got to win the game.
Yeah.
So, and I know Kirby says, hey, here's what we got to do. We got to just keep throwing it to them, show them we got confidence in them.
Yeah.
But you also got to win the game. So, but I also, on the other hand, I feel like Bobo has had a lot of opportunities because he's an alumni of Georgia. And I think Georgia is in a position where we don't have to hire the alumni guy to be our offensive coordinator. We can go out and get a guy like Todd Monken. We've known that we can do that. We're a prestigious enough team that we can go out and hire the best offensive coordinator in the country and put him on our team.
I feel like
the offense was better when Monken was here.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It was just better. I don't know if guys could catch the ball better or whatever, but Arian Smith was on our team when Monken was here.
Yeah.
Carson Beck was our quarterback when Monken was here.
Yeah.
We looked better.
Well, I got a question. Offense. Yeah. I got a question right here, and I want to point it out to you. Arian Smith is obviously WR1, right? 3 passes to Oscar Delp, 1 pass to Lawson Lucky, and 2 to Ben Urasic. What are we doing? I mean, that's 3 tight ends and 1 wide receiver, and that's it.
Keep in mind, those are receptions. Well, I mean, what was it in the first half? In the first half, I think we only had 1 completion to a receiver.
Yeah, it's terrible. But at the end of the day,
Arian Smith is the only receiver that caught the ball. That caught a well, Dominic Lovett had 3 receptions for 0 yards. Those are those little toss out to the edge.
He can dunk
plays.
But he had a 4-yard, and then he got popped behind the line of scrimmage. And so, one of the things I wanted to point out about Trevor Etienne is I think he learned something in this game.
Yeah.
And the thing I think he learned was that stop trying to run to the damn side.
Yeah, run upfield, man.
Run up the field. And it looked like they're in the late, as we started getting later in the game, he started running upfield.
Yeah. What Primetime Dog says, that's the point I wanted to point out. That was one. When Gunner threw the pick, I think we even texted this. Like, that was a bad decision. But why was he even asked to throw the ball there? Run the ball, kick the field goal, forced him to go down there and score a touchdown to win the game.
Yeah.
That reminded me so much of the Falcons in the Super Bowl, man.
Yep.
Like, run the ball. Why are you dropping you dropping Matt Ryan back and he gets sacked out of field goal range, and all of a sudden now you just lose the game? Run the ball, force Clemson to use the timeout, or you let it go to the 2-point conversion or the 2-minute warning. You kick the field goal, you go up by 6, and you force them to drive the field to win the game with a touchdown. Yeah. I just don't understand why you're asking your backup quarterback to throw the ball on 3rd and 13 when you're in field goal range when you're trying to also run the clock down. It made no sense. It was another one of those things where it felt like he was trying to fool them. For what? Just play ball.
To do too much.
Yeah, play ball.
Too much. One more thing, and then I got to call it. Georgia had 1, and by definition of explosive play, I mean more than 20 yards or more. 20 yards or more is an explosive play. That's what you got, right? Georgia had one explosive play all night, and it was a run by Trevor Etienne for 48 yards. Absolutely huge momentum shift. Wonderful to play. Wonderful to see. But what I constantly saw, and by the way, out of all of our receiving, we had 2 plays that were close to being that, a 19 and an 18. But we really weren't explosive in this game. We were very methodical, it seemed like, and we just ground Texas down. Texas seemed like every time you looked up, they had an explosive play. Had a 50-yarder, a 41, a 20, a 22, and there was 1 or 2 other plays in there I felt like were big plays. I think DeAndre Moore had another 20-yard pass in there somewhere. But it was clear that Georgia was not able to throw the ball deep. And hopefully that improves. I don't know if it'll be Gunnar Stockton or Carson Beck. I think if it's Carson Beck, it's probably not going to be improved. If it's Gunnar Stockton, maybe. But Georgia's got to figure out how to catch the damn ball. We need to fire, in my opinion, we should fire the receiving coach. I don't know what he's teaching them or not teaching them, but they can't catch the damn ball.
And not only that either, it also, and I know we're like 2 of our top receivers, like we're way down the chart on our receivers out there. And when you do that, every team wants to have that one guy that the other team's got to think about double teaming, and that helps out everybody. Georgia doesn't have that. Colby Young's not here. We've lost 2 huge receivers that we thought were going to be out there and be playmakers.
Love to get Caleb Young back.
Not having them out there it has hurt bad, because the guys that are out there they're not breakaway guys. I mean, Arian is, but he can't catch.
And I'm going to give everybody the information on the wide receivers we currently have. Okay. We have Nitro Tuggle, who is absolutely amazing to watch play. He's a freshman. Anthony Evans, he's pretty damn good. He is a sophomore. We haven't seen him very much. Dominic Lovett, he was MIA in this game. Colby Young, who has been suspended from the team for most of the season, and Arian Smith, and he's got boat paddles for hands. Michael Jackson III, who just entered a transfer portal to go to somewhere else. That's it. That's our wide receiver core. That's it. We're done.
Yeah, they can't. I mean, the guys that are out there can't get open. Arian Smith is the only one that can get open when guarded man to man. And when you can guard these guys man to man, it frees up so much for the defense to be able to do other things. When you got a guy out there remember when Pickens was on our team? That dude, you had to put he demanded so much attention.
Yeah, he was going to play.
Yeah, and so he demanded so much attention, so you couldn't just stick one guy on him and feel good about it. But you can, like Dylan Bell. I love Dylan Bell. You throw the ball to the dude, he 9 times out of 10 he's going to catch. He's got great hands, but he's not a guy that's going to break away and be wide open. He's not going to run a route that's going to have him wide open unless you have another complimentary guy out there that the team's got to worry about. Dylan Bell's like a possession guy. He's like a guy that that can get open when you're worried about a guy that's going to scorch you down the sideline.
And by the way, Dylan Bell has been out since November 16th.
Yeah, I mean, So I will say, I think the kid, I went to the Lee County High Milton game Friday night. CJ Wiley from Milton is legit. That dude made some ridiculous catches in that game. He's big. He looks like a D1 guy just on the field out there, like amongst the high school players. If Georgia doesn't go out there and get like a stud at wide receiver, I think CJ Wiley will play next year as a true freshman.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing Nitro Tuggle get out there more often.
Yeah,
that's for sure. That guy's incredible. He's had some amazing catches this season, but I would love to see Dylan Bell come back. If Dylan Bell can make it back, which he had an ankle sprain basically 3 weeks ago, this bye week is going to help tremendously, and then he's going to be back after that. I would imagine.
Yeah, I love Dylan Bell.
Yeah, Dylan Bell is incredible. He is such an all-performance player. You can really put him anywhere. He's thrown for a touchdown and caught a touchdown in the same game. That's how good he is.
Yeah,
Guys are
he's
incredible. If we can get Colby Young back, get Dylan Bell back, that will help us tremendously because as of right now, and this is another thing I was talking about, Mike Bobo. As of right now, we essentially have Arian Smith and Dominic Lovett, and that's it. That's who we have at the wide receiver position that's currently playing. And I gotta tell you, if you only got 2 wide receivers you really have to worry about, it makes it a lot easier as a defensive minded coach to train up on what those guys' tendencies are.
Yeah.
Somebody's asking about Rashad Evans.
Oh, you talking about Jalen Rashad, the quarterback that transferred. I mean,
he's a redshirt freshman. I mean,
I haven't seen him play. I mean, he came in. I don't think he played any in the spring game, obviously, but I mean, backup quarterback was Gunnar Stock. I heard some people calling for Rashada to come in because he's the big name, that we picked up in the transfer portal. But
I mean, I get it why you want to see him, but Gunnar Stockton has been in the system a lot longer.
Yeah, I don't think exactly. As I was going to say, Jalen Rashada is. I think you would have seen Puglisi before you saw Rashada last night. In fact, I think Kirby said they were going to put Puglisi in to actually hand the ball off to Etienne at the end there, but the offensive coaches said, hey, Beck can hand the ball off. Beck's good.
Yeah, and I want to say I have a lot of respect for the UGA coaching staff. I'm tip my hat to those guys for knowing Carson Beck was injured. Carson Beck standing up there and saying, I can do this. Let me do this. Let me do this. I can do this. And they say, you know what? Go fucking do it. And they easily could have put one of the other quarterbacks in their hand. They could have snapped the ball to anybody and handed it off. It's nothing. Yeah. That's nothing exciting.
I was really hoping to see. I was hoping to see Gunnar run the ball in and win the game. I really wanted to see that. But when they didn't call the targeting on him, I was like, man, he's gonna have to come out for a snap. If they had called the targeting, he could have stayed in. But yeah, when they put up the flag for targeting, I was like, man, he's got to come out, and that's why I was waiting to see like who comes out there as quarterback. And then when Carson Beck came out with that arm just dangling, it was like, dude, what are we doing?
Well, I get it, but at the same time, I mean, I think we had a lot of faith in our offensive line at that point. We'd been pushing them around for a quarter. I feel like Carson Beck kind of earned that because, I mean, let's be honest, that very well could be the last snap he takes at UGA. Let's just call it like it is. We don't know what that injury is. We don't know how bad it is. We have no idea.
Beck, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Beck. That's what I meant. That very well could be the last snap he takes at UGA. And if that's the last snap he gets for the Dogs and it's a handoff for a touchdown to win the SEC championship game, good for him.
Yeah, I agree.
I do want to there was something else I wanted to point out. I forgot again. Jesus.
Yeah, Rashada did. Yeah, he played last year, but I mean, I'm sure he's a great quarterback, but stepping into a new team and having to pick up the scheme and how we play. I mean, just because you're a good football player doesn't mean you can just change teams and immediately go in there and play.
Yep. Completely different scheme,
especially behind somebody that's been here much longer and understands the plays. And I mean, I think Rashada is probably going to end up being a great quarterback. I don't know if he stays at Georgia, but
that's good.
But, yeah, he's good. I hope he does too. But Georgia's getting kind of. I mean, the quarterback room's kind of full. So
yeah. Looking to I'm going to answer your question here in just a second. Prime time. If you look at how depleted Georgia's wide receiver room is, and you look at the strength of schedule we've had, and you look at how gritty this football team is, you look at how beat up we are in the running back room. If you look at how bad of a passer Carson Beck was at times, if you look at how many passes our receivers drop, we dropped 38 at some point. That's the most in FBS. That is literally the most in FBS. And we are currently ranked as the number 2 team in the country. That is a huge indication that Mike Bobo knows how to win with the least amount of players on the field. You got to give the guy credit, because if he wasn't calling an absolutely incredible game almost every game, we would be losing. Like we could be 8-4 right now. But he has found a way to take a hodgepodge of leftover pieces and put them together in a fashion that has got us to the second seed in our championship game. Absolutely great defense, 100%. But if you don't have an offense that can stay on the field long enough to rest your defense, I don't give a damn how good your defense is. They're going to get exhausted.
Yeah, they can't go. The defense isn't going to go out there and win every time, but especially not the defense we have right now. Like we don't have the 21 or 22 defense. We
don't have a Roquan Smith. Yeah. We don't.
So let's do this. Let's do this. Like, give your take on, can we win with Gunnar Stockton?
Yes. Absolutely, we can win with Gunnar Stockton, and for a number of reasons. We're getting some guys back healthy. This bye week is huge for us. The fact that Georgia has shown that they can run the ball against a great defense like Texas, that they can go in there with a game plan of, we're going to run the ball and we are going to stonewall you. We are going to take a team that is traditionally been difficult to stop running the ball all season, and we're going to shut them down. Then we're going to go out there and we're going to play a balanced offense, something we haven't done all season. Half of that game was Carson Beck. And by the way, when Carson Beck was in the game, we were losing. When Gunnar Stockton came in, we found a way to finish that game and win it. If Georgia can do that against the number 2 Texas team, which, by the way, is a damn gritty football team, against Steve Sarkisian, who is one of the most interesting offensive coordinators, offensive-minded head coaches in the game, I don't see why we couldn't win a national championship with Gunnar Stockton.
Yeah, so here's my take, right? I certainly think that Carson turned into a different quarterback when he started running a little bit more, right? It gave him the confidence. It opened up our offense a little bit when the team started having to worry about Carson running the ball. There was a couple of games, even the Georgia Tech game, it felt like he just turned into a different person once he scrambled for a first down. I think that is the dynamic that Gunnar Stockton is going to bring to our offense. Like, when you got receivers that can't catch, and I know people like to crap on Carson, but the difference between Carson last year and Carson this year is Carson this year doesn't have receivers that he thinks can catch the ball, guys that can't get open. And so he's having to force the ball in there. And when your only threat as the quarterback is to throw the ball down the field, but you don't have anybody to throw the ball down the field to, you really make it easy to play defense against you. Now, when you insert a player like Gunnar Stockton, you certainly don't immediately have better receivers, but you certainly have a defense now that has to take into account that, this guy can take off and run the ball. He can run the ball, like he can really run the ball. He's not gonna just scamper for 4 or 5 yards here and there like Carson. Yep. He can run the ball to the point where he's like a Haynes King type kind of guy. He's like a guy where the defense is on the verge of having to commit somebody to spy on him. Yeah. Because we are going to run the ball with Gunnar. That makes everything better for our offense.
Yep.
That allows our receivers to get more open. Ask Georgia Tech. That's why Georgia Tech was able to throw the ball down the field. When you got to worry about the quarterback running the ball to the right and the left, you might have to spy 2 guys on him. So, yes, I think I put it this way. I don't think we're in any worse off position with Gunnar Stockton as our quarterback than Carson Beck, because I think what our offense is lacking from a wide receiver position, I think Gunnar's skill set complements that or makes up for that more than what Carson Beck could do. In a perfect world, we have receivers that can get open, and you have a guy like Carson Beck that can throw the ball and get it to him, and you take the hat off the defense and, you score 40 points. That's best case scenario. We don't have those wide receivers. We don't have guys that can get open. So we got to have an extra dynamic player that can extend the play, because that's another thing that Gunnar can do. He can get outside. You saw it last night. He can get outside the pocket and extend the play more than Carson can, which allows the receivers to start running around and get open. Because, even the worst receiver, you can't guard him for 10 seconds. So I just think he adds a dynamic that's going to make it interesting. And I don't think we have a worse opportunity to win the national championship with Gunner as our quarterback than Carson. I don't think it's worth.
Well,
I hate to say that because it sounds like I'm crapping on Carson, but it's not. I just think that the status of our offense right now is just not benefited by having a pocket passer.
Well, not only that, I can't be the only one who at moments was watching Gunner Stockton run around and go, my God, he looks like Stetson Bennett. Can't be the only one.
He's athletic and
he's super athletic, and he can turn on a dime. And I think with a little more playing experience, he's going to be absolutely incredible for UGA. And I think Carson Beck wants to be that, but he's not that athletic.
Well, Carson Beck is your prototypical pocket passer guy. He's athletic enough to run, and get some first downs when they give it to him. Gunner, like he reminds you of Stetson because Georgia just historically doesn't have those type of players that's going to run and extend the play. But Gunner, to me, is built, and I'm not comparing Gunner to Tim Tebow, like stats wise, and I'm not trying to like anoint Gunner Stockton as the best player in college football, but he's that kind of build, right? He's kind of stocky. He's kind of stocky. He's a guy that he's quick on his feet. He's surprisingly quick on his feet for how big he is, and he's athletic enough and confident enough in being able to run the ball that he's going to run you over.
Honestly, he's better. He's better currently. He's better than Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter.
Yeah, he's just he's just one of those guys that Georgia's outside of Carson Beck, Georgia has not really had like a quarterback that's like that, right? Where that's again, I go back to the Pavia at Vanderbilt and Haynes King at Georgia Tech. Those are the guys that were like, hey, if my team's not getting done around me, jump on my back, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And that's what Gunner has, that kind of mentality to me, because he can extend the play. He can go off script. The defense
he can make you plan for something unprepared.
Yeah, the defense has got to take into account. Yeah, Cam Newton, exactly. That's the name that comes to mind. Cam Newton, Jameis Winston, Tim Tebow, all those guys are cut from the same mold. And I think Gunner fits into that type of player. He's big enough to run you over, quick enough to outrun you, and
accurate enough to burn you.
Yeah, and can also throw the ball. Right.
Yeah, accurate enough to burn you.
And the team trusts him enough to throw the ball. I said, I think his first play from scrimmage was a pass down the field, like right down the middle of the field. And he put zip on it too.
Yeah. It looked good. It looked comfortable, like I said.
This team, and again, I'm not one of these guys that hates on Carson Beck, but it's very possible this team just got an upgrade with Gunner Stockton as quarterback as far as what our offense can do. But
whenever you've got receivers that can't catch, having a run quarterback can't do anything but help you. And he clearly showed last night that he is accurate enough to do and run that Georgia offense and whatever's needed.
Hey, and the moment wasn't too big for him, right?
Oh,
that was one of the things that Carson admitted. When was it JT Daniels got hurt or whatever? He wanted to go in, but he kind of realized the moment was too big for him. But you put Gunner in, and he could have folded. Like, he could have just been out there and been like, shaking in his boots, and he wasn't. So,
see, and you can't coach that kind of mentality.
And I don't know if you watched did you watch the post game thing where they interviewed Kirby? He was about to cry, bro.
Oh yeah.
He was about to cry. He was getting choked up, and he just walked away.
He had to walk away. Like, this guy right here is a winner or something like that.
Yeah, for sure.
I got to go ahead and call it. I got some other stuff I got to get done here. We've been on for about 2 hours. So first, before we go any further, I want to thank Texas Rocks for showing up. Congratulated us, classy guy. Appreciate you doing that, sir. Not a lot of Texas fans in here this morning, but appreciate you showing up. You guys played a hell of a game. It was a tough game. It was fun, classic, one for the ages for sure. Just Georgia come out on top this time. So appreciate it.
I'm definitely not going to look forward to playing you guys when Arch is under there, man. I'm happy that you guys didn't put him in as much. I know everybody on the Georgia side was like anticipating Arch almost getting half as many snaps as yours did, and because of what Haynes King did against us. And man, I don't understand why they didn't do it, but hey, whatever.
All right, guys. Well, I'm going to go ahead and call it for today. Keith, thanks so much for jumping on. I really appreciate your input. It's always fun to talk college football, especially after big games like this. But Dogs win. That moves us up to the number 2 spot behind Oregon. And man, I'm looking forward to the rest of this college football season. So appreciate you guys being on. So we'll see you guys real soon. You guys know what we say around here. Have a great day. God bless. Go Dogs.